The night my restaurant opened, I wore the same red dress I'd saved for 10 years, the one I once promised myself I'd wear on the happiest day of my life. But as I stood in front of a room full of strangers, clutching a champagne glass that had gone warm in my hand, I realized happiness wasn't something you could plan for, because the people I wanted to share it with the most, my own family, never walked through that door. The band kept playing, cameras flashed, the mayor gave a cheerful little speech about local dreams and hard work, and I smiled when I was supposed to. But inside, I was fighting the tightness in my chest that made every breath feel like swallowing glass. The sign outside Mara's table glowed in soft gold light, just like I'd imagined it for years. Everything was perfect, every tablecloth pressed, every candle flickering steady, and yet, it felt hollow. Because every time the bell over the door rang, I looked up expecting to see my mother's familiar scarf, or my brat. Hers crooked grin, or maybe my father, pretending he didn't cry when he was proud. But it was never them, just another guest, another congratulatory handshake, another polite smile. When the clock struck 9, I excused myself to the restroom, locked the stall door, and pressed both hands over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. That's when I whispered to myself, "How did it come to this, Mara? How did you open your dream and end up so alone?" And that's where my story begins. For as long as I can remember, food was my love language. I grew up in a small town in Oregon, where my mother, Denise, ran a diner that smelled like pancakes and burnt coffee all day long. She'd wake up at 4 a.m., tie her hair up in a messy bun, and hum Patsy Cline songs while flipping eggs. My brother Luke and I would sit at the counter doing homework, waiting for her to finish the morning rush. That diner was where I learned what warmth felt like, not just from the griddle, but from the laughter, F regulars, the clinking of mugs, and the way Mom always slipped free pie to anyone having a bad day. My father, Frank, was a mechanic, quiet, gentle, the kind of man who didn't say much but always made sure your tires were full before you drove away. And Luke, well, Luke was the golden child, the one who could charm anyone, the one Mom always said was born with lucky stars. He was 2 years younger than me, but somehow always seemed to head better grades, better job, better everything. Still, I loved them. I loved all of them. Even when I moved to Portland after culinary school, I called Mom every night. We'd talk recipes, her southern gravy versus my French sauces. I sent her pictures of every dish I made, and she'd always end with, "When are you coming home, baby? We miss your face around here." When Dad passed away 2 years ago, that diner, the one that had held our whole family together, closed its doors for good. The old stove broke, and Mom couldn't keep up with the bills. That's when I promised myself something: I'd honor Dad and Mom and everything they taught me by building something of my own. Something lasting. Mara's table wasn't supposed to be fancy. It was supposed to be real, comfort food with heart. The kind of place where people lingered over dessert because it felt like home. I worked 2 jobs for years, catering by day, waiting tables by night, saving every penny. I took out a small loan. My best friend, Rachel, helped me scout the location, an old bakery with brick walls and wooden floors, the kind that creaked like they had stories to tell. The day I signed the lease, I called my mom first. "Mom, it's happening," I said, my voice trembling with excitement. "I got the place." There was a pause. "Oh, sweetheart," she said softly. That's wonderful," but there was something in her tone, hesitation, sadness. I couldn't tell. I brushed it off, told myself she was just emotional. From that day forward, I poured every ounce of myself into that RESTURANT. I painted the walls myself, picked out every plate, every chair, even hand-wrote the menu just like Mom used to. When I tested recipes, I'd imagine Dad sitting at the counter, grinning after the first bite. "Could use more salt, kiddo," he'd say. And Luke, well, he promised he'd be there for the opening. "Front row, sis. You'll see me first thing." Mom said the same. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, baby." Even my niece, little Ellie, made me a crayon drawing that said, "Aunt Mara's table, yum yum forever." I taped it in the kitchen, right next to the stove. Those weeks leading up to the grand opening were the busiest and happiest days of my life. I barely slept. My heart was racing all the time. Every box delivered, every recipe finalized, felt like one step closer to finally showing my family that I'd made it, not just for me, for us. Because deep down, I still wanted Mom to look at me the way she looked at Luke. With pride, not polite support. So when opening night finally came, I made sure every detail was perfect. White lights wrapped around the front windows. A soft jazz trio set up by the bar. The smell of rosemary bread drifting out into the street. And at 6 p.m., when the first guests arrived, I kept glancing toward the door. Every time that bell jingled, my heart jumped. But as the night went on, that excitement started turning into something else. Confusion, then worry, then a quiet kind of dread. By 7:30, I decut the first ribbon, given the little speech, and posed for the photographer from the local paper, all while waiting for someone from my family to show up. I kept checking my phone. No messages, no calls. Finally, I slipped into the kitchen to text Luke. "Me, where are you guys? Everything okay?" Luke, running a bit late. "Don't worry, sis. Okay, fine. Late happens." But then 8 p.m. passed. 8:30. The guests were laughing, eating, clinking glasses. My staff was bustling around like clockwork. And yet, every sound felt muffled. Like I was underwater. I texted Mom. "Me, Mom? You on your way?" "Mom, sweetheart, we're so proud of you. Hope it's going great." That was it. No "see you soon." No "we're outside." I stared at that message for a long time. My hands started trembling. Something was off. It wasn't just that they were late, it was that they were avoiding me. I'd learned enough from years of family dinners and tense silences to recognize it, that polite distance that always came when someone didn't want to tell me something. Still, I forced myself to smile when customers stopped me to compliment the food. "Best mashed potatoes I've had in my life," one man said. "Thank you," I whispered, forcing my voice steady. But inside, a small voice kept asking, why didn't they come? And as the night wore on, that question began to twist into something darker. Did they even plan to? By the time the last dessert plate was cleared, I'd smiled so much my cheeks ached. The jazz band packed up quietly. The servers start. Ed wiping down tables. The night had gone beautifully, at least, that's what everyone told me, but standing there in the middle of that perfect little restaurant, watching the candles burn low, I felt like a child who'd just been left behind at a train station. Everyone was gone except Rachel, my best friend and business partner. She came out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Hey," she said gently, studying my face. "You okay?" I swallowed hard and nodded. Yeah, of course. Just tired." She looked at the empty tables, then back at me. "They didn't come, did they?" Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. I didn't answer right away, just shook my head. Rachel sighed. "I'm so sorry, Mara. It's fine," I said quickly, forcing a laugh. "Maybe something came up. You know how Mom gets. She probably had a migraine or Luke's car broke down," but even as the words left my mouth, I knew how weak they sounded. Rachel hesitated. "You want me to call an Uber for you?" I blinky. Why? "Because, honey, you shouldn't be driving right now. You look wrecked." I smiled at her, a small, brittle smile. "Thanks, Rach, but I'm fine, really." She hugged me before she left, tight and long, the kind of hug that says, "I know you're lying, but I'll let you have this moment." And when the door finally closed behind her, the silence hit me like a wave. The air smelled of roasted garlic and lemon butter. The fairy lights still glowed warm. Everything looked like success except for the single table in the front corner, the one I'd reserved for my family. 4 plates, 4 sets of silverware, 4 untouched glasses of water. I couldn't make myself clear it away. Instead, I sat down at that empty table, resting my head in my hands and just breathed. My phone buzzed on the table beside me, a text from Luke. "Congrats, sis. The pictures look amazing. You should be proud." That was it. No apology, no explanation, just that. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then I typed back. "You were supposed to be here." He read it. I saw the little read receipt pop up, but he didn't reply. That was the moment something in me cracked, because Luke was never the one to ignore me. The next morning, I woke up to find my phone full of messages, journalists, local bloggers, even foodies tagging the restaurant on Instagram. It was everything I had dreamed of, and yet I couldn't feel anything. All I could think about was why my own family hadn't shown up. I tried calling Mom first, straight to voicemail, then Luke. "Hey," I said when he picked up, my voice already shaking. "You going to tell me what happened last night?" "Mara, it's early," he mumbled. "Can we talk later?" "No, Luke, we can't. You promised me. You promised you'd be there." A long pause. I could hear him exhale on the other end. "I know," he said quietly, "but things got complicated." "Complicated?" I repeated, my anger starting to rise. "What's that supposed to mean? You live 20 minutes away." "Look, Mara." "No, don't look, Mara, me. Mom texted me too, like everything was fine. None of you showed up, not one person. Do you have any idea how that felt?" His tone shifted defensive, almost sharp. "You don't understand, okay? It wasn't about you." I froze. "What does that mean?" Another pause. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, he said, "Mom didn't want to go." My throat tightened. "What? Why?" "She thought it'd be better if we didn't make a scene." My heart dropped. "A scene? At my opening?" "Yeah, well, after what you did." I cut him off. "After what I did? Luke, what are you talking about?" He sighed. "Mara, maybe you should talk to Mom yourself." And then he hung up. I just sat there staring at the phone like it had betrayed me too. After what I did, the words echoed in my head all day. By afternoon, I drove straight to my mother's house. The little white bungalow I grew up in looked smaller, somehow older, like time had shrunk it. Her car was in the driveway. I walked up to the porch, the wood creaking under my heels, and knocked. When she opened the door, she looked surprised, not happy, not angry, just startled. "Mara," she said, clutching her cardigan. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I said. "I came to ask why my own mother didn't come to my restaurant's grand opening." She stepped aside, letting me in. The house smelled like cinnamon and old coffee. The same curtains hung by the window, faded and floral. "Mom," I said again, trying to steady my voice, "why didn't you come?" She took a deep breath. "Sweetheart, I didn't want to cause tension." "Tension with who?" "With everyone," she said quietly. "Your uncle, Luke, me." My brow furrowed. "I don't understand," she sighed, sinking into the old recliner. "Your uncle called me last week. He told me what you said about the diner." I blinked. "The diner?" "Yes. How you told people that I ran it into the ground, that it closed because of me." "What?" I said, stunned. "I never said that." "Well, that's not what." "Had I heard from Uncle Roy?" "Mom, you know how he is. He's been mad at me ever since I didn't hire his son." She shook her head. "Roy wouldn't lie about something like that." "Yes, he would," I snapped. "Mom, I opened that restaurant for you, to honor you." She looked up then, eyes softening for a moment, before hardening again. "Then why didn't you invite Roy and his family?" "Because they've never supported me. Because when Dad died, they didn't even show up to the funeral." Mom looked away. "You could have been the bigger person. I felt like the ground was tilting beneath me." "So that's it?" I whispered. "You didn't come because of Roy?" Her silence was my answer. I laughed, a small, disbelieving sound. "You chose him over me." She looked at me then, eyes full of tears. "It's not about choosing, Mara. It's about peace. You know how this family is, one wrong word and everyone takes sides. I didn't want your opening to turn into a war." I shook my head. "You didn't come to avoid drama, but do you, Ave, any idea what you did instead?" "You broke my heart, Mom." Her lips trembled. "I'm sorry, baby. I really am." But it was too late. That apology felt hollow, like a bandage over a wound that was already infected. I turned toward the door. "You could have called me. You could have asked before," believing him. "I was scared," she whispered. "You've always been so strong, Mara. I didn't think you'd need me there." I stopped in the doorway, my back to her. "That's the thing, Mom. Strong doesn't mean unbreakable." And then I left. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, replaying every word. The betrayal wasn't just that they didn't come, it was that they didn't trust me. I thought of all those years I spent trying to prove myself to them, all the calls, the visits, the care packages. And in one night, all that love felt like it didn't matter. For days after that confrontation with Mom, I couldn't bring myself to go back to the restaurant. The kitchen I once called my sanctuary felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by absence. The empty chair in the front corner still waited, like a reminder of everything I had lost in one silent night. Rachel tried to keep things going. "You have reservations coming in, Mara," she said gently over the phone. You can't just disappear. People loved the food. The reviews are great. I know, I murmured, staring at the ceiling. I need a minute. Because every dish, every plate I set down, felt like it carried their faces in the reflection. But a few days later, Rachel stopped by with a brown paper bag full of muffins and the look of someone who had something to say. You need to see this, she said, pulling out her phone. It was a Facebook post from my cousin Erica, a picture of my restaurant, taken from across the street the night of the opening. The caption read, "When family forgets where they came from, sometimes it's better to stay home." I felt my stomach twist. There were comments, too, little passive-aggressive remarks. Guess S. He doesn't need us now that she's famous. Wouldn't want to ruin her big city moment. Heard she told everyone she built it on her own. Must have forgotten who taught her to cook. My heart sank as I scrolled. Rachel frowned. They're painting you as some kind of sellout. I didn't say any of that, I whispered. I never would. I know, Mara, but people believe what they want to believe. I stared at that screen until the letters blurred. Then I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a full-blown story, crafted by my own family to justify what they'd done. That's when the heartbreak began to shift slowly, quietly into something else. Resolve. I went back to the restaurant the next morning. The staff looked surprised to see me. I smiled, tight but steady, and said, "We're staying open. Let's do what we came here to do." And for a few hours I managed to lose myself in the rhythm of it all, chopping onions, plating dishes, greeting customers with the same warmth I'd learned from my mother's diner. But later that week, while wiping down the counter, I overheard two women near the bar. "She's the one, right?" one of them whispered. "The chef whose family didn't even show up to her own opening?" "Yeah, I heard they cut her off completely. Something about drama with her mom." I pretended not to hear, just kept polishing the counter, but it hit me hard. This wasn't just private anymore. My family's silence had become my reputation, so I decided to fix it. Not with shouting, not with confrontation, but with truth. That Sunday, I posted something on the restaurant's page. When I dreamed of opening Mara's table, I imagined sharing it with the people who taught me everything I know about love and food. Life doesn't always go as planned, but that doesn't mean you stop loving. This restaurant stands for every woman who built something from scratch, even when no one believed she could. You are welcome here. Always, no names, no blame, just heart. The post went viral overnight. Messages poured in from strangers, people I'd never met, sharing their own stories of being unsupported, unseen, undervalued. Rachel called me the next morning. "You started something, Mara. People are connecting to you." I smiled faintly. Maybe. But that's not why I wrote it. Then why? Because I needed to remind myself who I am and who I'm not. She understood. She always did. 2 weeks later, the restaurant was thriving. We were fully booked for the next month. And then one afternoon, Luke walked in. He looked uncomfortable standing in the doorway, hands shoved in his jacket pockets. "Mara," he said softly. "Luke." He glanced around the restaurant, nodding slowly. "Place looks great, thanks," I said coolly. He hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry." I didn't respond, just crossed my arms and waited. He sighed. "Mom told me what happened. She feels awful." I raised an eyebrow. "Does she? Because she hasn't called." "She's embarrassed," he said. "She knows she messed up." I stared at him for a long time. "You could have still come, Luke. You didn't have to pick sides." He looked down at the floor. He said, "She never meant to hurt you." I nodded slowly. "Maybe not. But she still did." He exhaled. "She's scared you don't want her in your life anymore." I looked down at the cup of coffee between my hands. "That's the thing, Luke. I do. I just want her to show up when it matters." He nodded, quietly. "Then maybe we start there." The next Sunday, the restaurant was closed for brunch, my only day off. I was wiping down the bar when I saw Mom's reflection in the glass door. She stood outside for a long time before finally coming in. Her hair was tied back, and she was holding a small box. "Hey, baby," she said softly. "Hey, Mom." She set the box down on the counter and opened it. Inside was a faded recipe card, Dad's meatloaf, written in his messy handwriting. "I thought maybe you'd want this for your menu," she said. I stared at the card, blinking back tears. "Mom, you didn't have to." "I did," she interrupted gently. "I should have been there that night." "You're right. I believed the wrong people. Silence hung between us for a long moment, heavy, but healing. Then I said, "You could make it up to me, you know." Her eyebrows lifted. "How?" I smiled faintly. "Help me make Dad's meatloaf for next week's special." She laughed softly, wiping her eyes. "I'd love that. That afternoon we cooked together just like old times. And when Luke came by later, he joined us too, elbowing me playfully like we were kids again." For the first time in months, the restaurant smelled like home. The week after Mom came back into my life, something unexpected happened. Word spread. Customers began asking, "Is it true your mom's helping out now?" And when I nodded, their smiles warmed the room more than the candles ever could. Soon, people started coming not just for the food, but for the story. A family fractured, then mending over recipes and second chances. Mom would sit at the corner of the counter during busy nights, rolling napkins and telling customers, "This one," she'd point at me, "used to be. Earned toast when she was 10. Now look at her. And Luke?" He was finally finding his rhythm. He'd chat with guests, crack jokes with the servers, and sometimes I'd catch him humming old tunes Dad used to sing while cleaning up. It felt like maybe, just maybe, things were healing, but peace in a family like mine never lasts long. It was a Thursday night when everything came full circle. The restaurant was packed, laughter bouncing off the walls, the air filled with the smell of rosemary and roasted potatoes. I was plating dishes in the kitchen when Rachel came rushing in. "Mara," she whispered, eyes wide, "your Uncle Roy's here." My heart sank. "What?" He just walked in. "With Erica?" I froze for a moment. The clang of pans and chatter of the kitchen faded behind a rushing sound in my ears. Of course they came not to eat, not to support, but to watch. I wiped my hands and walked out to the dining room, and there they were, sitting near the window, scanning the place like inspectors' inns. "Teat of guests. Uncle Roy," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Didn't expect to see you here." He smiled, that thin, smug kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Heard this place was getting some attention. Thought I'd see what all the fuss was about. Erica folded her arms. "Looks nice. Fancy for someone who forgot her roots." I inhaled slowly, forcing my tone calm. "I never forgot. I built this from them." He chuckled. "Is that what you're telling people now?" I felt Rachel's presence behind me, quiet but grounding. "Would you like to order something, or—" I asked. Roy leaned back in his chair. "We'll see if the food lives up to the hype. Though I gotta say, your little Facebook post made waves." Erica smirked. "Yeah, people love a good sob story." Something in me snapped then, not anger exactly, but a clean, cold sense of enough. "You know what, Uncle Roy?" I said quietly. "You've got every right to your opinion, but if you came here to stir up trouble, you might want to remember where you are. This isn't your diner, it's mine." His expression flickered. "You always did have a sharp mouth. And you always did underestimate me," I replied, meeting his gaze evenly. For a moment, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, to my surprise, Mom's voice came from behind me. "Roy?" He turned, startled. "Denise." She was standing by the counter, apron tied, a dish towel slung over her shoulder. "You don't get to walk into my daughter's place and disrespect her," she said. "Your daughter's spreading lies about the family," he snapped. "No," Mom said firmly. "She's finally telling the truth." The restaurant had gone quiet. People were pretending not to listen, but I could feel the weight of every eye on us. "Roy," she continued, "you ran that story because you couldn't stand seeing her succeed without you. You wanted her to need your approval." He opened his mouth, but she cut him off. "You should be ashamed of yourself." Erica muttered something under her breath, but Mommed her. "Ned to her too. And you, young lady, you should know better. Family isn't about tearing each other down for attention. It's about showing up." Erica flushed red, looking away. Roy pushed back his chair. "You've lost your mind, Denise." "No," Mom said, voice trembling but strong. "I finally found my backbone." He stood there a moment, face tight with anger, then turned and stormed out. Erica followed, but not before glancing back at me, her expression uncertain, almost guilty. The door closed behind them with a soft chime. The silence that followed was deafening. And then, one of the customers, an elderly man who'd been sitting near the bar, started clapping, slow at first. Then others joined in, In seconds, the whole restaurant was applauding, not for drama, not for spectacle, but for truth. I looked over at Mom, tears in my eyes. She just smiled and whispered, "Told you I'd show up this time." The next morning, local blogs were already buzzing about what had happened. Someone had recorded the exchange, just the part where Mom stood up for me, and it spread like wildfire. The comments were overwhelming. "That's real family, good for her. Everyone needs a mom like Denise." Mom laughed when I showed her. "Lord, I didn't mean to go viral." "Maybe it's good people saw what standing up looks like," I said. For the first time in months, I felt light, not because I'd won, but because I'd finally been seen. Roy never came back. Neither did Erica. But a few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my aunt, Roy's wife. She wrote, "I saw the video. I'm sorry for staying silent all these years. Your father would be proud of you, Mara. I hope one day we can all sit at your table again." I didn't know if that day would come, but the letter stayed pinned to the corkboard in my office, a reminder that healing doesn't always start loud. Sometimes it starts quietly, with one person deciding to speak. Months passed. Mara's table became more than a restaurant. It became a community. People brought in their own family recipes, stories, photos. We started a heritage night once a month. Guests could bring a dish from their family's past, and we'd cook it together. It wasn't about profit anymore. It was about connection. Mom came every Saturday morning, apron tied, hair pulled up in a bun, humming Patsy Cline just like she used to. And Luke, well, he ran the front of house now. Customers loved him. Every now and then I'd catch him sneaking extra slices of pie to kids, just like Mom did. One evening as we closed up, Mom said, "You know, baby, this place, it's more than your dream. It's a second chance for all of us." I looked around at the tables glowing under soft light, the pictures of our family on the wall, the laughter still lingering in the air. "Yeah," I said softly, "it is." Later that night, when the restaurant was empty, I sat alone by the window, the same one I'd once stared through on that lonely opening night. Outside, the sign gleamed softly in the dark, Mara's table. I smiled, tracing the letters with my eyes. It wasn't just a name anymore, it was a story of hurt and forgiveness, of brokenness and rebuilding. And I realized something: maybe family doesn't always show up when you need them most. But if you keep the light on long enough, sometimes they find their way back home. The first anniversary of Mara's table arrived quietly. No banners, no press. Just me, Mom, and Luke setting up before dawn like we always did, coffee mugs in hand, jazz humming softly from the old radio. I remember standing by the window again, watching the sunrise creep across the empty street, golden and slow. 1 year ago, I'd stood in this very spot, waiting for my family to walk through that door. 1 year ago, I thought their absence defined my worth. Now, I knew better. Because somewhere along the way, this place stopped being about proving myself. It became about belonging. That morning, a little girl named Ava came in with her mom. Ava was one of our regulars, 7 years old, with curls that bounced when she laughed. She always ordered blueberry pancakes, extra syrup, just like Miss Mara's. She slid a hand-drawn card across the counter. "I made this for you," she said shyly. On the paper in crayon was a picture of me behind the counter with a big smile and the words, "Mara's table where everyone has a seat." My throat tightened. Her mom smiled. "You've made this place feel like home for her." For a lot of us, after they left, I tucked the card beside my register right next to Dad's photo. I swear he was smiling wider than ever in that frame. Later that evening, the crowd was steady. A soft buzz of conversation filled the air. Luke came over, wiping his hands on a towel. "You know, we should have thrown you a party tonight." I laughed. "I think I've had enough dramatic parties for one lifetime." Mom, "Besides, you know your mama loves cake." We all burst out laughing, but when I looked around at the faces of customers who'd become friends, at Rachel cracking jokes by the espresso machine, at Luke smiling like he finally belonged somewhere, I realized this was the celebration. Not loud, not flashy, just full of life, full of heart, full of family, even if some of that family wasn't blood. Near closing time, as I was wiping down tables, I noticed a figure standing hesitantly by the door. Erica. She looked different, smaller somehow, tired. I froze for a second, then nodded for Luke to handle the register while I walked over. "Hey," I said softly. She smiled nervously. "Hey, Mara. Didn't think I'd see you again. I know, I wasn't sure I'd have the nerve to come. I waited." She glanced around the restaurant, eyes lingering on Mom laughing with a group of regulars. "Place looks beautiful. Feels alive. Thanks." There was a long pause. Then she exhaled shakily. "I wanted tea." "Oh, apologize." As a kid visiting their house, and as we talked, the years between us seemed to melt away. No big reconciliation speech. No perfect ending. Just two women finally seeing each other for who they really were, not enemies, not rivals, just family trying their best. When she left that night, she hugged me. It wasn't long, but it was real. And as the door closed behind her, I realized forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means deciding the past doesn't get to poison your peace anymore. After closing, I locked the doors and turned off the lights. The restaurant was dark except for the faint glow of the sign outside Mara's table. I walked through the quiet dining room, fingers brushing across, the chairs, the tables, the worn wood of the counter. Every corner of this place carried a piece of my story, the scars, the sacrifices, the second chances. I thought about that first night, the empty seats, the ache in my chest, the silence. Back then, I thought no one showing up meant I was alone. Now I know sometimes the people meant to sit at your table just need time to find their way, and sometimes you have to build the table yourself. I sat down at one of the booths, pulled out my journal and wrote something I'd been too afraid to admit before. I don't need everyone to show up for me anymore. I just need to keep showing up for myself. I closed the book, smiled, and whispered to the empty room, "Dad, I did it." Outside, the wind rustled the trees. Somewhere down the street, laughter echoed from a passing couple, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace. You know, life has a funny way of feeding you the same lesson until you finally taste it. For years, I chased approval like it was the missing ingredient in my recipe for happiness. I thought if I could make everyone proud, family, friends, strangers, I'd finally feel full. But the truth is, you can cook 1,000 perfect meals and still go hungry if you're waiting for someone else to tell you they're good enough. Sometimes you have to serve yourself first. You have to forgive the people who didn't show up, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You have to open your doors even when no one knocks, and you have to trust that the people meant to find you one day they'll wander in, tired, lost, maybe even sorry, and when they do, you'll have a seat waiting, not out of obligation, out of love, because that's what family really is. Not perfect, not punctual, but possible. So if you're listening to this, and you've ever felt that kind of heartbreak, that empty room where your loved ones should have been, don't give up. Keep cooking, keep dreaming, keep setting the table, because one day someone will walk through that door, and when they do, you'll realize they didn't just show up for dinner, they showed up for you, and you'll finally see what I learned the hard way. Sometimes the people who never showed up were just making room for the ones who always will.